It's Harley Quinn, and thanks for tuning in to Mental Mondays. So some of you may or may not know that I've broken up with the Joker. Finally, it's been some time now, and I think it's finally a time that I address my experience with him, especially seeing as a lot of you guys romanticize our very toxic, unhealthy relationship. And I know
not everything is that deep, Harley,
but it may be a red flag to your mental state if you're idealizing such a toxic relationship.
I'm just saying, okay?
So before I get into it, I just want to say on that note that can we please leave the clowns and the fucking caterpillars behind us
forever.
Okay? Let's leave them behind. Let's stop being clowns by association. And that's why I don't have my Harley Quinn get-up makeup on. So let's leave the caterpillars behind there. Let's find us some kings, queens, and butterflies. Okay? The caterpillar minds can crawl their ass to whatever little corner that they belong in with all the other caterpillars. We butterflies are flying and moving forward into a new era. So today I want to address the number one most frequently asked question, not just to me, but to abuse victims in general, and that is,
why did you stay?
Why did you stay?
You know, it must not be that bad if you keep going back, and if you do keep going back, well, you deserve it because you know what you're getting yourself into. What did you do? You should have known better. Just all these ignorant comments that people make when they're uninformed about something, but that's okay. That's why I am here to inform you, and I got you. So the first thing I want to address is that abuse can happen to
anybody.
Anyone. It doesn't matter what race, religion, culture, income level, education status, senior, teenagers. It can affect anybody. It can happen to anybody. And let's not rule out the men, because it can be especially hard for them as well, seeing as they get ridiculed, and you know, it's just not socially acceptable for them to be in a abusive situation. It's demasculating. There seems to be this misconception that only damaged women with daddy issues get stuck in these types of toxic relationships, which is just not true and not the case. Because guess what? Abusers don't just pop up in your life, slap you around, and destroy your life, and you mindlessly let them. That's not how it works. Can you guys hear my poor bird going crazy? He's not even locked up. He's with somebody, but he's hearing me talk. So the first stage in abuse is to seduce, charm, and isolate the victim. So in the beginning stages, the abuser is really going out of their way. They're going above and beyond to really seem like your ideal soulmate. And you really do start feeling like they're your soulmate. So then they slowly start to isolate you in a very manipulative way. And that's the thing. Abuse isn't always a moment or an instance. It's a gradual buildup. It's a concoction of manipulation, gaslighting, trauma bonds, etc., etc. You know, they're not going to come out of the blue telling you to cut off your family and friends because now it's time to whoop your ass. So they'll do it in a way that sounds beneficial to you or your relationship, and you buy into the dream or the fantasy because you're caught up in this blurry love vision. And if it's not that, they may guilt trip you using a personal reason. Whatever it is, the point is it's circumstantial, and the abuser will use the situation or the circumstance to their benefit. And isolation is such a huge factor because of the shame and guilt that already comes with being in an abusive relationship. You know, it's already difficult to address and admit as it is. And on top of that, you're worried if your friends are going to judge you or support you. Luckily, I had poison ivy to help me get through all this shit. So now I'm going to get into the cycle of abuse, and this is what most victims get sucked into. So the way I see the cycle is kind of like a dangerous current. As a bystander, the stream doesn't look too powerful. You know, if you've never been in it, if you don't know anything about it, then it looks like if you fall in, you can just swim out.
No big deal.
You know? And from the outside looking in, you may even be like,
what's the big deal? Can't you just wade out the water?
But anyone who's actually been sucked into the stream will tell you how hard it is to get out. And when you're swimming back to get out, you're just fighting against the current, fighting for your next breath and just to stay afloat, which is exactly what it's like to be stuck in the cycle of abuse. You're just catching your last breath, trying to stay afloat and just keep it moving to the next moment until you come to a deadly end, in which case you either make it or you don't. And even if you survive that fall, it's kind of like Bird Box, you know, after they survive the fall, there's all these voices. It's like that, except the voices are all like anxiety and depression. So number one is tension building, and this is when the abuser is planning the abuse. So they're looking for excuses and reasons to nitpick at anything. They're arguing about petty things half the time, most of the time. almost all of the time. It makes no damn sense. And this is when there's a huge breakdown in communication. There's a dark cloud and energy over the entire relationship. You're walking on eggshells and you're just really confused and you don't know what's going on and you're just trying to get it back to how it was in the beginning. So number 2, we have the incident, and this is when the abuse takes place. Now, abuse can be psychological, emotional, mental, physical, financial, social, did I miss anything? Sexual, verbal. And finance is a whole nother reason on its own. Abusers usually take control of this area so that if the victim does try to leave, they're faced with homelessness, and when children are involved, it's, you know, much, much worse. And I know people like to disregard certain types of abuse, but that's a whole nother video. So number 3 is denial, and yes, we victims know all too well about denial, but this is about the abuser. Actually, they never deny the abuse. They will either minimize the incident or make it seem like it's not a big deal and you're overreacting. And if it is a big deal, then you caused the reaction and it's all your fault because it was something you did. It's never their fault, and there is always a motherfucking excuse. Alright, so lastly, of course, is the honeymoon phase, and this is when they apologize. I'm so sorry, it'll never happen again, I love you so much. They go above and beyond to get you gifts, then blah blah blah, whatever bullshit, whatever the circumstance calls for, until you're finally hopeful again and think, okay, it's gonna go back to how it was in the beginning, and it never fucking does. And just an FYI, they will say sorry, but they're never actually sorry, because if they are, they wouldn't be making 20 million excuses. They're just saying it to get you sucked back into the cycle. So the final step in domestic violence is to kill the victim. And 70% of murders that happen in domestic violence cases happen after the victim leaves. So you can see why it's so frightening to leave an abusive relationship. Especially at this point, they've threatened you either physically or through blackmail. And as much as you want to believe that the person who loves you and that you love so much, you want to believe that they wouldn't go to such extremes to hurt you, you just never know, because you never thought they'd hit you in the first place, and then it gets you, and then it got even worse, and you never thought they'd pull a knife on you, push you out of the car, run you over, like whatever the hell they did, whatever extreme they went to, you never thought they were going to do that. So who's to say what other extreme they're capable of? You just don't know. And especially when abusers are losing power and control, they start acting very, very erratic, and you just don't know what they're capable of. They're very unpredictable. And even aside from the murder and the physical part of it all, a lot of women who leave also experience long-term stalking. Alright, so I think that's everything. I feel like I'm missing a few points. I thought I had more points when I was brainstorming this, but so when I was in the cycle, I didn't see myself as a victim. You know, I saw myself as a strong woman who was helping this very troubled man. And because I was so attached to him, I really wanted to help him. And because we don't see ourselves as a victim, we worsen the denial. We start making excuses like, well, I fought back too and I did things as well. You know, I even found myself downplaying and shrugging off a few incidents because it just wasn't as bad as some of the other incidents, but looking at it in a normal relationship perspective, it's fucking crazy. But comparing it to the actual relationship in itself, it just seems like, well, it's not really a big deal, and I did this and I reacted this way. And another thing, you know, I know people think that women always want to change men and blah blah blah, and sometimes yes, that's the case, but I think a lot of the times that is not the case, because we don't meet them as these damaged, messed up, broken men. We meet them as these amazing, charming, strong, king type men, or so we think. And then when everything goes to shits, we're just like,
what the hell happened?
And we don't think that we're trying to change them. We think that we're trying to revert, you know, we think that we're trying to revert it back to how it was when we first met. And of course, love is a huge factor. I'm not going to get too deep into that because that's pretty self-explanatory. When you feel like one is your soulmate, you're just so attached to them, and it's really hard to let go. So the last thing I want to address, and one of the most important things, is the psychological factor. And I'm not going to get too deep into this because it's going to become a whole nother video. So it's pretty common for a victim to have characteristics of codependency, being an empath, being a people pleaser, And those are all topics that I will elaborate on in another video, as well as, you know, gaslighting, trauma bonds, just all those other things that I mentioned. I will be elaborating in a different video. I just want to stress the fact that the psychological factor is huge. You know, a lot of people just kind of brush it off like, oh yeah, I'm fine, I'm good, but no.
I know.
You know, facing the reality that you were a victim isn't easy, because that means accepting the fact that you were manipulated by somebody who you thought loved you, who you loved so much, that you put so much time and energy into, that you were genuine about. And it's a really hard pill to swallow, but once you do, you will come out stronger, better on the other side. Alright, you guys, I hope this video was very helpful and informative to you. Whether you have a friend that's going through abuse, I hope this helped you understand them more. You're not going to be able to pull them out. They'll have to see it on their own time. That's just the way it is. But I hope you guys have the patience to help them through it. Because you can't tell a victim nothing, you know. They will get out on their own time. You can't force them to get out. You can't force them to see what you see. They have to see it on their own, and they will see it in their own time. So I hope this gives you a better understanding. If you're going through abuse, I hope that this video was helpful in understanding yourself a little bit more, and it'll help you pull you out of that circumstance, that situation. And if you're healing from it, then there is a brighter side. You will get there. Just hang in there, I promise.